There is nothing wrong with your radio.
Do not attempt to adjust the volume.
We are controlling the broadcast.
For the next hour we will control all that you hear.
You are about to experience the knowledge and insights of the Media Mothership.
All right, welcome to Media Mothership here on Edge Radio Studios in Nipaluna, Hobart, Tasmania. On this show, we explore how media can shape our understanding of the world around us. I am your host, Dr. Craig. I'm joined by the experts from Edge Radio's other show, Mental Connections, Wendy and Nicholas, masters extraordinaire of all things connected to mentalness. If I can alliterate like that.
Yeah, Mental Connections looks at mental health issues in Tasmania and beyond.
So I'm getting you to put a slightly different hat on for this show, which will be your adventures overseas and interstate as you've explored the world around us, and in particular where media, popular culture, movies, television, novels have overlapped with those travels. Because I know we were talking a while back about some of the exciting places you visited, and you had admitted a little bit of kind of fan culture or fanishness of some great series, popular television series and movies. So we're going to explore this phenomenon of media tourism.
Well, I think we should start with Wendy. She did some trips to the United States and overseas, the UK, before we met. So Universal Studios might be a good place to start.
Universal Studios. All right, so maybe I should play like this theme. Let me try to play a theme song that might get people slightly in the mood for where you're about to transport us. We'll see if people at home can guess what we're hearing. So, yes.
I'm wanting to say danger, Will Robinson.
The menacing, fantastic orchestration of Jaws.
Yes.
So what happened? Because what year, what dates was this that you...
It was end of 82, early 1983. So I was young and I was with my mum and dad and my little sister. And we went to the US and on a guided tour, and included on the tour were a number of wonderful opportunities such as Universal Studios and Disneyland at Anaheim.
Wow. And so this is early 80s.
Yes.
Jaws came out the decade before. But I also know there was like E.T. overlap that. Like this would be prime E.T. time, right?
Definitely, yes. E.T. was huge, and when we were walking into the whole complex, they had big posters and photographs and all sorts of information on E.T., the movie, and it was so wonderful because it was, just the way that they'd done it all. And then also, of course, Battlestar Galactica had come out, the original one with the Cylons who were actually robotic. And they had some of them, and it was all. We went on a sort of like a tour, and on the tour they turned all the lights off, and suddenly you had this Cylon, and it was actually really scary.
There we go. Well, let me because some people might know that wonderful sound that the Cylons have. I'll see if I can do a quick. Here we go. So that kind of Cylon,
with the light that's the eye going across to the same tune.
It's fantastic. So if you're watching us on YouTube, you can also watch us on YouTube and Twitch. And Wendy has brought in her photo album, so we'll be putting some of them up as she's unclipping them from the album up on the stream.
And you might have to have it so that it shows properly.
Wow, it's more of a kind of, hint that there's an actual photo album that we're looking at.
And there was also what was called the ET Earth Centre, and that was really interesting too. It had lots of important information about the environment and what we can do to help protect our Earth.
Because I guess if people have never been to Universal Studios, It's a theme park, right? And so obviously you've got Universal Studios, which is famous for producing movies and television. And so it's that real. I mean, what I find so fascinating about looking at stories of people going to locations and then recognizing where they've been filmed or their kind of reenactments is that idea that it can really have you fall in love with the magic of movies.
Oh, definitely.
Right?
Yeah, definitely.
What was memorable, or what left some of the biggest impressions on you from Universal Studios?
I think one of the things that really struck me was just the fact that it was so diverse. I didn't realise how they actually made films. So they actually showed you what they did when they made a film, like as in they took you to a certain set and then they said, okay, everyone's got to stay over this way, and then they flooded the whole street with water. And and it was amazing. And they were like, people can actually drown in this, so watch out. It was quite a serious sort of set. It was like the buildings were actually, some of them were actually fully completed, but a lot of them were just facades.
And what's interesting there is that when you're watching the film where there would be a flood, the reality you're seeing in that movie is of like the dam is broken or something and this huge flood has occurred, and it's believable, right? It's believable that it's a real impact of water. Yet when you go to a theme park and they reenact a scene, you kind of realize that, it's fake. It's a very controlled explosion, a very controlled flood. While there's risks there, nevertheless, there's a sense that, is it kind of like going to the sausage factory, right? Many people talk about that cliche of they became vegetarian because they went to the sausage factory and they never want to eat meat again. Do you go to these theme parks and see how they're done and think, I'm never going to watch movies again because it's fake?
Oh, no. It just
it's the
gives
opposite,
you
it
insights.
feels like, isn't it?
It gives you insights because you see more about what goes into it. And I actually found after that I started to notice a lot more of the detail in movies, like things I hadn't really noticed before, like continuity errors and things like that. Just things that I hadn't really thought about. And also about, like, some, as you said, some things are fake, but like this actual water, this flood was actually real, a real flood. So sometimes it's real. And they also took us to another area, the Western area, where they shot saloon. They had a saloon and they shot the Western movies. And they actually had people, stuntmen there, falling off buildings, doing all this amazing stuff right in front of us. Explosions, gunfire. It was really, really well done. And it sort of showed you how they film those sort of scenes, and they're really full on. The stunt people are just absolutely incredible. I do not know how they do what they do. It's actually dangerous. One person got injured when we were there. They broke their arm right in front of us, and it was really, really bad. So It's actually full on. Yeah, definitely.
And again, that would, obviously in the films when fights are occurring, they're not real fights, and it's rare to have injuries like this because these are professional stunt people. And again, much like that idea of on cinema, when we're watching that action, the Western hero land a punch and the villain goes over the second story of the saloon or something and falls down on the ground, it looks kind of really bad in terms of like the villain is going to die, he's going to fall down, that was a real punch. You're convinced by the violence.
Yes.
But the reality sometimes is that to get to that stage, they've had to practice it. Yeah. And maybe in practice, someone's been injured. And maybe sometimes they have a wire attached to them and protecting them in that way. And maybe other times they don't have any wire and they land in a funny way or they cop a hit they didn't expect to get. So to me, it reminds me a little bit of the wrestling where, okay, it's a script, but these people actually get hurt and they put up with the hurt.
But if that pain occurs, they've kind of, it's interesting because they're meant to look like they're in pain. If they actually are in pain, something's gone wrong, right? Something's gone wrong. Someone's done something that shouldn't have happened.
I remember Jackie Chan broke his foot and kept going, put a cast on and kept going. right? So
Yeah, but
they have
what-
genuine injuries.
So what I was going to say though about this, these were stunt people who'd done this scene many, many times before. But what had happened was it had been raining, which it doesn't happen a lot in desert areas, in this sort of area in California. And basically it was slippery and he fell awkwardly, and they didn't have wires on. They were just doing it purely using mattresses or soft landing type situations. But he twisted as he fell, and because of that, he landed on his arm. Yeah, and they stopped everything. They were really, really professional. They stopped everything. They got the medics in, took him away, and they came back later and said, he's okay, he's broken his arm, but it's okay, he's all right.
It's an interesting transition, I think, that moment of... Because it no longer becomes entertaining in a way, right? Like the crowd would be hushed in a sense of the gravity of what they're seeing. It's not entertaining anymore. So again, it is that really fascinating tension when you're going to see how the movies are made, and it's a very safe space, and you're seeing how it's very fake. But that's the entertainment of it, right? Yes. We're given permission to enjoy this because we're not really seeing a shark eat someone. No. It's all fake. We're not really seeing someone die. It's a fake gun with a fake bullet. So when we do see someone get injured in a theme park space, a performer, it's really fascinating how it's the same concept in terms of we've seen, the kind of body be hit by something, but in this case, it's the real consequences of it rather than, and he stands up and walks away because it's fake. Instead, the ambulance comes, the stretcher comes, and it's a fascinating little philosophical moment almost in terms of...
But it does happen a lot to stunt people and to the full-on screen actors as well, that they can get hurt and some of them even die. It's really serious stuff that they do.
It is. And the water going down the street reminds me of theatre in Paris. 1980 was the first time I'd gone overseas, and we went to France and we're in Paris, and we went to the Lido and saw a show in the Lido. And in that show they had a number of different scenes. One scene was some ice skaters came up from the floor.
Oh, wow.
And they skated on the ice. And then later on that went down. Then they had, I think it was a scene from the Mikado, but I might be wrong with this. And they had the singing and they had the bridge, and the performers are on the bridge, and all of a sudden the bridge started to shake, and then the bridge collapsed, and all this water came in, tons of water.
Right. Not deliberately. This was part of the
it was
act.
part of the act. And you think, where do the tons of water come from? Where do they go? And then that reminds us of when I first went to Disneyland, or Wendy took me to Disneyland, and she'd been beforehand.
I've been 3 times to Anaheim now.
Yeah.
And I don't know about the other Disneylands, but that's pretty awesome because it's got the history too, and it's the original one.
Yeah.
So Disneyland, many people will know some of the key properties, media franchises that are linked to Disneyland. What were the ones that stood out?
The one that stood out for me, and I'm not sure about Wendy, we did this on behalf of our kids at the time. And we went from 9 a.m. to midnight when it closed.
Yes.
Wow.
And we wanted to go on the Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom ride, which we heard was the best one. And when we arrived, we went on a couple of little ones like Pinocchio and It's a Small World.
Right.
Yep. And then there was a big sign that said, it told you how long the wait was with each of them. And Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom was a 15-minute wait, and we hadn't more than 5 minutes was the most for us up to then. We said, no, I'm not going to wait that long. Then the next time you go past the sign, it's like an hour. And then the next time it's an hour and a half, etc. In the end, it was just before midnight that we finally, actually an hour or so before midnight, we got into the line. And eventually we got to the front of the line. And we'd been in that... the snake thing like you have at the airport.
Yes, those kind of queues which kind of go back and forth.
So we're in there between an hour and 2 hours. And by the time we got to the end of it, I thought, well, maybe that is the experience.
Almost like a museum walk trip.
And in the end, you had these great big doors, but the doors open, so you go in, and there's this monstrous big vehicle that'll fit 4 people across the front, and then there's 3 seats, and then I was the driver of this Jeep.
All right, so the seat you were in happened to have like a fake steering wheel.
Yeah, fake steering wheel.
You had no control over it at all.
Nice.
No, I had the control. No, there was no control. So anyway, and the very first scene, you're going in, and you remember the boulder scene where the boulders come at them?
Yes, the classic Raiders of the Lost Ark.
And logically, you know that you're safe, right? The boulder's not going to get me and everyone else that's with us. But you're thinking, well, how's this going to happen? And all of a sudden, we dropped and we're on rails and we go underneath the boulder. And that was the start of the ride. And it goes for like a couple of minutes. And it's a real rush all of the way. And then you get to the end of it and you think, yeah, it was worth 1 to 2 hours wait to get to the 2-minute ride.
It is so fascinating, though, roller coaster rides in theme parks, where the thing I love about that story, Nicholas, is you have the movie knowledge, right? So Raiders of the Lost Ark, you know the boulders, a terrifyingly exciting action scene in that film. The boulder Harrison Ford's just triggered the trap.
Yes.
He's taken the idol and he's triggered the trap, though, and the boulder's kind of crashing towards him, and he's in a race for his life to get out of the Aztec tomb, wherever he is. And it's thrilling. And what's fascinating, I guess, about that roller coaster ride is that, or type of roller coaster ride, is that it's kind of reenacting that scene in a way that's really immersive for you, right? That logically, you were saying, like, logically, you know you're safe, right? You're in this very protected car, and you know that the steering wheel's fake and you don't have any control. But nevertheless, the adrenaline starts kicking in,
Very
right?
much.
Because you're describing the roller coaster suddenly plummets down, and so that whole physical feeling.
You're on a
like,
steep hill
Yeah.
that goes underneath the boulder.
And the psychology of that must be fascinating. I mean, to wire someone up and monitor their brain patterns as they're in. And what's interesting, again, is, that there's that kind of storytelling overlap, that it's not just a roller coaster. It's a roller coaster at Indiana Jones, where your, kind of fanishness of the props of Indiana Jones also kind of overlaps with how you're feeling. And so, it gives you this really very immersive experience.
I was going to also mention I've been to Universal Studios twice.
Yes.
Sort of like 2 years apart. And it was different each time. Like it hadn't, some things were similar or the same, but E.T. had taken on a life of its own by then. So we actually had one of the members of our group who was chosen to get on the bicycle and fly with a green screen behind them and fly with E.T. in the front of the bicycle basket, and that was pretty cool. And then they also had other things, like they had a room that actually could rotate, and they actually had someone sit in this chair, and they actually secured in with a seat belt, sort of a safety belt, and they actually turned it so that that was sort of like turning, not completely upside down, but just to the side, and they showed you how they filmed certain scenes using that sort of technology and that sort of idea.
Yeah.
And nothing moves except for the actual room moves. Everything is so solidly planted in the room.
Yes.
And nothing moves except the person's hair. So they have to be careful. They said they had to do certain things to people's hair to make sure that didn't look obvious and things like that. So really interesting.
I mean, again, it returns to that fascinating point that we can suspend disbelief when we're watching the film, and filmmakers go to great lengths to ensure that disbelief is suspended, right, as you were saying, in that performance space, making sure the hair doesn't move to give away that this is all fake and that actually it's the room moving or they're moving and the room staying still. Yet it doesn't, again, trigger that kind of sausage factory vegetarian moment. Instead, it's like it sounds like we really enjoyed films for that.
And there are also examples of life imitating art, imitating life. And one example of that for us was the Pirates of the Caribbean
ride.
And what it was...
And that's one where you're kind of seated in kind of like a boat.
Yeah, you go in and you sit in this boat, and this boat chugs around to these various places, etc. But we went on that ride before they made the movie Pirates of the
That's
Caribbean.
right, with the famous Jack Sparrow character played by
Johnny Depp.
Johnny Depp.
Yeah. So the actual ride preceded the movie, whereas some of the others, it's the movie that precedes the ride.
And people were saying, how can a theme park ride be a movie, right? Say with board games, like they did the Battleship movie.
True.
Based on the board game. And yeah, it's impossible. It's really difficult to convince people that never knew it was a ride first to say, no, it was a ride. And people never thought it was a horrible idea. That how can you do a whole movie on a dinky little Disneyland ride?
Yeah, exactly.
Yet it became one of the most successful action movie franchises. It spun off, 4 or 5 sequels. And now I a few years back I went to Disneyland in Japan, and they've got an animatronic Johnny Depp character in there now that you go by, and you see Jack Sparrow. So it's that, again, as you're saying, it's that kind of what is the mothership, I guess, for Pirates of the Caribbean? Is it the ride or is it the movies? Yes, the ride may have come first, but now the movies are more popular and better known than the ride.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now the movie is kind of changing what the ride is.
It's like the movie's a remake of the ride, and they've expanded it, and then because it was successful, quite often because of the actors in it, but it must have been the writing as much as anything and directing, and they say, right, we can get some money from this, so they keep redoing it.
Yeah. No,
And
it's strange.
The other thing about Disneyland to me is that you actually get to meet like Mickey Mouse.
So did you have
And-
any magical, memorable encounters with characters?
Yes. Now, my favourite Disney character is Goofy.
Goofy, yeah,
And-
right. He
and-
does. His
yeah.
voice is kind of.
He's a dog.
Yeah, let me see if I can find a. For those that have never heard Goofy, so Goofy.
Yeah, Goofy. Yeah, I know Goofy. So Goofy was. So every day they have a certain character that they choose to be the one that sits and has photos taken with the audience. And the day that I was there, guess who it was? It was Goofy. And
Really?
I got 2 photographs of me with Goofy, and it was really cool.
That's
Long here.
so is it kind of derpy character? Maybe the young kids would say today, buck-toothed. What is he? Is he a dog?
Yeah, he's a dog. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he's a dog.
So Goofy was the one out, and did you get a photo op?
Yeah, I've got 2 photos here. I'll show you.
Fantastic. Oh, wow. Well, it's Christmas Goofy.
Yeah, we were there at Christmas time.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Can you make sure it's...
Oh, yeah. We'll put it nice and close.
Goofy it was super cool. He was a really nice Goofy. Really, really lovely.
Well, it's interesting. Again, it's one of those things with Disneyland. You come across various kind of forensic fan videos unpacking the experience of Disneyland. That the commitment many people have to Disneyland. Then also the life of being one of mascots.
Yeah.
It's a whole life. It's a whole career for some people.
Yeah,
Yeah, amazing.
and the rides, they might be only small rides, or it might be a walkthrough like the Pinocchio workshop.
Yeah.
And you go through and you see the little puppets and you see Geppetto and whatever else. And compared to, the big thrilling, heart-pumping rides like Indiana Jones, it's a lot tamer. But then they'll also put on a show such as Pocahontas, and you have live theatre. And the show that we saw was absolutely phenomenal.
It was Pocahontas.
The singer that was playing Pocahontas, absolutely gorgeous,
World class.
fantastic voice, as good as anything you would hear ever.
Yeah.
And it was so seamless, and it felt like just a couple of minutes. But you watched the whole show.
Yeah, it was incredible. Really
I mean,
amazing.
for many people, it strikes me that Disneyland is like the best day in America, and then outside of Disneyland, when you see the real America, like for Australians, for instance, people that live outside of America, but they love Disney movies. It can be a fantastic experience to go to Disneyland because it is that kind of Hollywood pop culture image of what America is.
Remember what Walt Disney said? he wanted to make the happiest place on earth.
Right, yes.
And he succeeded to some extent, I think.
Was there a contrast between real America and Disneyland America?
Oh,
did you kind of
Yes,
think
totally.
America isn't as happy
No.
as Disneyland?
Well, I'll give you a bit of an insight as well. When we first arrived into Anaheim, there was all these phone booths in this square where you had to ring up the hotel you were staying at and they'd bring a courtesy bus to pick you up. And I kept picking up the phone and saying Sheraton Anaheim. And they kept, and the sheriff kept turning up and kept looking around. I'm like, something really odd here. And I finally twigged, they thought I was saying Sheriff Anaheim. And they kept calling the sheriff to come and check on something that was happening with tourists or whatever. And they just didn't understand my accent. So I had to say, Sheriff. No, not the sheriff, the Sheraton Anaheim. And I had to speak with an American accent. They went, oh, you mean the Sheraton? Oh, yeah, sure. And then they sent the bus. But it was like 3 or 4 times before they finally twigged it. So they really didn't understand what I was saying, even though we're speaking English. It was like a real cultural divide. And when we were at Disneyland lining up, Nicholas and myself, we were speaking with some lovely people who were going to the Rose Bowl, and that's why they were in California.
What is the Rose?
Oh, it's a big...
It's the lead up to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And what happens in
gridiron
America is the
football,
American gridiron or
Huge.
American football. They have what they call conferences because America's so big and you've got to travel so far and it's a big population. And so, if you do well in your conference, then your conference will have its Super Bowl equivalent to get to the next level. And the Rose Bowl is the California conference or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, but these people were from Idaho.
Yes.
And they came to see their team.
And I said the
Play.
word. I said, oh, look, we've been having heaps and heaps of fun. We've been doing heaps and stuff. And they just kept looking at me like really puzzled. And they finally said, what's heaps? Is that some sort of vegetable? And I'm like, no, it means a lot. It means a lot. And they just couldn't get that concept that heaps meant a lot. Like as in that was just a way of saying a lot of something.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting. There's just a difference in colloquialisms.
Yes.
It really showed us how you have to be so careful what you say.
And Wendy's quite good when she travels because she'll slow down her speech and she will cut down on the words that she uses and doesn't use as many colloquial ones.
Well, that's why, because I found out the hard way, you can't do it. It's
the sheriff's
gonna work.
there and you don't want to annoy sheriff.
No, and I apologised. I said, I'm so sorry. And they went, oh, it's okay, ma'am. Don't worry, it's okay. They were really nice, But I just felt awful because I was wasting their time, but I didn't know.
Look, and I think it makes perfect sense.
Yes.
Right? I mean,
they laughed, actually. They thought it
Sheraton,
was really
Sheriff.
funny.
But
They were laughing.
if I remember rightly, these are the two boy and girl or whatever from Idaho that had come to see their team play.
That's a different.
That was a different one?
time. Yeah, when I went with my mum and dad, my little sister was when the sheriff's one happened. That was earlier.
Yeah, that's
It
true.
was 81, 82. But the other one was when I was with Nicholas in 84, 85. Oh, no, 97, sorry.
96,
96,
97.
97, yeah, it was a lot later on.
Because many people can underestimate the challenges
Yes.
that you can face when you're
But
traveling.
Yes, you don't, and even in another culture that speaks English, doesn't mean they're going to understand
right.
what you're saying. And that's a really good message.
And the word football, it depends where you are in the world
Yes.
as to what it means. When I grew up, there was one of 5 different things, and 6 if you add the gridiron in. So you've got the Australian football, AFL. You've got soccer, which, that's probably the big world game. You've got rugby league and rugby union. And you've got touch football, and then you've got the American gridiron.
And it's fascinating, isn't it? Because that's a loaded phrase to some people. Like, whatever gets to be football is on a hierarchy, right? So they'll say, well, no, soccer is the only true football. You can call it soccer, but it really should be called football. All those other things are not football. AFL is not football. It's AFL.
And then there's Gaelic football too. Yeah, well, the story is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you had some English, what we would call private school, but they call public school boys playing football, which would have been the soccer. And one of the boys cheated by picking up the ball and running with it. And that's where rugby union started.
Wow.
And so rugby union, because it was the rich people, the rich kids, etc., that was seen as an amateur thing. You didn't get paid to do it. Right? You could afford to play it. Then later on, rugby league was the one which was the professionals where you were paid to play it. And it was very similar, but the rules were slightly changed.
So before we go too far off the track with
Yes.
Disneyland
Sorry.
and Universal Studios,
Yeah.
what about souvenirs and merchandise? Any particularly favourite or significant?
Yes. I bought some, I bought some Goofy socks.
Why
I've
socks?
still got them. And I haven't worn. I've
The
never worn them.
costume socks?
No,
Do
they're just socks with Goofy's head with the long ears on the socks, like actual real ears on the not real ears, but piece of material on the socks. I've never worn them because they're
Really?
I protect them because I just
Yes.
look after them, and I've still got them.
From 1983
81.
or something. 81.
82, 81, 82. Yes,
Wow.
yes. Oh, sorry. Hang on.
See, I'm always
Get it
driven
right.
to say, have you looked on eBay to see how much
82,
they're
83.
worth now? I mean, these objects.
They wouldn't be worth anything, but
So you say. Nicholas, let's get onto it.
I've also got a hat. I got a hat that I found when I went with Nicholas in '97 because I saw someone in Australia wearing this hat. It had Goofy and Donald Duck and Daisy Duck and one other Mickey Mouse on the side on this hat, and it was absolutely fantastic. And when we went there, I checked every single hat they had in the store, and at the very bottom they had this hat.
Wow.
So I bought it. I've still
Really?
got it.
You had to hunt and
Yes,
gather.
but I found it, and I wore it once in Hobart, and this man gave me a really nasty look, and he was really mean to me, and I haven't worn it since because I felt so self-conscious.
Do you think it was something about the hat?
Because it's so good, it was so pretty, over the top.
Really? That's fascinating. That
I've still got it, but I just
had
don't
that
wear
effect,
Yeah, but he
you
was
feel.
really mean. But I knew
Well,
him.
so he just looked at you like
Yeah.
he wore it
No,
on
I
the
knew
streets.
him a bit, but he was like,
Oh.
he sort of looked at me like really disparagingly, like, "You're scum wearing that hat."
Really? Wearing that hat?
Yeah.
This was a hat,
Which
significant
was a fun hat. It
Yeah.
was a fun hat.
It was one that you also were lucky to get.
Yes.
Because it was it sounded like it was the last one there.
Yes,
You had to
it
dig
was.
through this whole bunch of hats that was there down the bottom. So it's a wonderful story.
Hmm.
Yet putting it on, it's fascinating. I mean, obviously there are some rules of hat wearing or something that this other guy saw that thought, well, that's incorrect rules.
Well, probably
for
that
this.
a woman shouldn't be wearing it. It should be a kid's hat, maybe. I don't know. But it was
Wow.
an adult size. So
That-
why can't an adult wear it? I don't see
It is
why.
interesting demonstrating your fandom of things, I think, sometimes. Some people, it can be
They
quite
don't
strict.
Get it. Like I've got a really cool T-shirt of what's the Japanese Mothra.
Oh, wow.
And
Godzilla monsters.
Godzilla, both of them on the same T-shirt. Mothra and I love Mothra. Mothra and
Mothra's great.
Godzilla on the T-shirt, but I don't wear it because I don't want to have the same reaction that people.
It's kind of judgment that it's kind of infantile,
Yeah.
or you should grow out from
Yes,
that.
yes.
Which, many, I guess, younger people, kind of don't realize that, that Australia is quite conservative. And there can be this sense of, you just grow up. Yeah, but you hear places like Japan and, older women and men have tons of pop culture around them. Their mobile phones are decorated with outrageous stuff.
I think it's great.
Exactly.
I think that's
And
great.
The one big thing of pop culture would probably be Doctor Who, and Cardiff for a period of
right. So let's set the scene. We'll play some Doctor Who sounds
Yeah.
to make sure, because we're going to move on now. So this is
But
so-
I haven't mentioned Calico Town. We'll talk about that later.
we'll circle back for that
If we have
a
time.
bit.
Yeah.
But we will.
That's it. You see, Wendy and I have been watching Doctor Who
Yes.
since it was black and white.
Wow.
From the
it's
early years.
1963.
We were.
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
no,
maybe a
63.
bit later than that, but some of our favourite Doctor Who's were black and white.
Yeah.
Wow. So we're talking
I
like
love
William
John, I
Hartnell.
love John Pertwee.
John
Yeah,
Pertwee.
John Pertwee.
Wow.
And
Patrick
Patrick Troughton.
Troughton.
Patrick
yeah.
Troughton,
Yeah, I
yeah.
love both of them.
However, and then so we've watched it go through a number of different stages, and we were lucky enough that our daughter went overseas in 2013.
2013. So this is very recent. So
yeah.
Doctor Who came back, of course. Doctor Who was off air for a while.
That's right,
then
and
Christopher
she
Eccleston-
And
has
it's
been a
It's
big.
been filmed in Wales since it came back. Sorry, Jim.
Ah, right.
Yeah. So it's in Wales. Yay! Sorry, Nick, go on. And she
Well,
came
she went overseas in 2013, and within a couple of weeks, she was living in Cardiff, which
No
is
way.
the capital of Wales.
Yes, way.
But she's
Right.
always been,
Way.
probably because of us, Doctor Who and science fiction fan.
Yep.
So,
I could tell you more about that, but I won't go into it now.
yeah. Anyway, when we went over...
So you had a family connection at Doctor Who Central, like the heartbeat of Doctor Who.
Yes.
So soon after she went there in 2013, we also, at the end of 2013, went over to visit because she was homesick, and she took us on the Doctor Who experience.
Doctor Who. So this is an actual thing called
The Doctor Who experience.
It
And
was,
what it is BBC4 Studios was right next door. And so they had the Doctor Who experience set up. And that had
an actual studio filming Doctor Who there as well, right?
Yes,
yeah, we
had the TARDIS.
we went to the Doctor Who experience.
Yes.
And then later we went to where they filmed Doctor Who.
Yes.
But
in Cardiff.
In Cardiff. And the Doctor Who experience.
They've got the TARDIS there.
First of all, you start off, and before you walk in, on a big pole hanging out of the water is a TARDIS.
Wow.
Right.
So
then you go
like it's hovering there, and
it's not there anymore because it's gone. But yeah, it was great. Okay, go on, Nick. Sorry.
I'm talking
Someone
about
wants to see it.
2013. We're going back in time,
Yes.
like Doctor Who would do, and you'd go in, and we've been twice. You would see things such as all the major villains, and all the
Daleks.
major
Every
doctors.
single one.
Cybermen,
Yes.
sea monsters,
Yes.
Zygons,
The real costumes.
The Daleks.
Actual costumes.
yeah,
Right, and more than one sort of Dalek. And you'd see the Doctor Who's and their
John
scarves.
Pertwee,
And their costumes.
Tom Baker,
And their costumes and their scarves.
Wow.
Right. And then there'd be the screwdrivers, the sonic screwdrivers.
Yep.
Yep.
So
and
what are
you
the
can
props?
and you
They
can
all
buy them.
They all designed their own.
You can buy them, and each Doctor had a different
Yeah.
design.
They designed them.
And see, one of my things is that I collect scarves. Not that I have a Doctor Who scarf,
I was going to ask.
but I have a whole collection of scarves, and I brought a few along today. The one I have here is my favourite one, which is from Peru.
Yes, beautiful, multicoloured Peruvian.
And Wendy might remember because her sister bought it, one back for her and one back for me. What was the material?
I think it's alpaca.
Alpaca.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Beautiful.
the colours
Pretty
are
sure.
fantastic.
It's all hand done. Too,
Yeah.
which is really
But
nice, yeah.
as well as that, when we went to Morocco,
Yes, and Nick's standing up now and going through the next. So if you do want to see this, you can always jump on YouTube. An interesting grey.
yes,
It doesn't look that exciting, but it's absolutely the most soft material. It's absolutely amazing.
Right, so it's a
It's
very
beautiful.
tactile,
Careful.
tangible experience.
yeah, and the one that we saw,
That Craig.
we went to a special place. I'm just trying to look for the
It says cashmere. It is
Cashmere.
cashmere. Yeah.
yes.
Wow,
Right,
how much
but-
is that on eBay? Let's find
Well-
out. It looks gorgeous. So where's this from? This is from
Morocco.
Morocco. Wow.
So when we were in
Morocco.
They make a lot of
Morocco.
amazing things in Morocco.
Morocco.
It's
we
amazing.
went to a place.
Oh, we'll have to get the mic back on your mouth.
Sorry.
Yes.
When we were in Morocco, and that's more recently,
Yeah.
there was a place that we went to where they did the dyeing of the materials from 2,000 years ago.
Right,
The
so it's
big-
the same type of technique they
Yeah.
used 2,000 years ago.
These big vats, where we were up on, say, the 4th or 5th floor looking down
Wow.
and smelling the stench from these big
Right.
vats of urine and
Oh, really?
whatever else.
Really? So like 2000 in terms of really old school.
It was the grossest smell I have
Wow.
ever encountered in my life. I nearly fainted. It
You've
was
never been
so
to a
bad.
toilet that smells bad?
No, not
No.
as bad.
No
It's never.
way.
No,
No.
it was. But it
And this
wasn't-
is actually part of a
It's-
clothes making
It's
process.
like rotting flesh as well. and
Oh,
they use-
wow.
It's like everything they use for making the different colours. of the
There's no
dye.
theme park ride for that.
It's been there
No.
for centuries, and so it's
Literally.
And
It's
they
kind of baked into the
yes, and they said the people
building.
who work there probably all their lives, so they're used to the
used to
smell.
the smell.
Yeah.
I
and
literally nearly fainted. I had to leave because it was so bad.
Well, it's one thing you can't.
Because we're up
No.
on the
Wait.
4th or
No.
5th floor, and it's like an open balcony.
Oh.
So the smell just comes in, and depends which way the wind's blowing as to how bad it is. But then
Fascinating.
they'll be selling the leather, maybe leather of camels or various other animals, and they treat the leather down there.
But that leather didn't smell
Right.
bad, not like this.
No, by the time it's all been
smell bad.
processed.
Really, you wouldn't think that the dyeing process to dye cashmere or clothing would require such a stench.
Different colours. See the
Right.
different colours.
Yeah.
And those colours, of course, are from organic things.
Yeah, and they're
And
dealing
those
with
organic things are breaking
But
down.
they're also dealing with leather and those sorts of things, selling lots of leather
leather,
products.
so animals and skinning animals.
Yes.
Yes,
And,
yes.
Um,
All of that, all
Yeah.
of the above.
Wow,
Yes. And
wow.
it was so bad, and I just had to leave. And everyone was like, I don't know how everyone coped. They did it.
Because it is interesting confronting that. I mean, usually, theme parks, again, we're talking about this
It's not
fake.
so real.
Yeah, where you get to kind of see these exotic other spaces, other worlds.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yet sometimes when you're confronted with the reality
Yeah.
of the exoticness of it,
It's-
it can actually be upsetting.
Yeah. And
Oh yeah, it
I mean,
really is,
yeah.
and the real world intersects with theme parks, as I said earlier. So when one of the stunt people got injured, it's not all completely like an alternative reality. It's actually sometimes very much intersecting with our real world.
Which, of course, is fascinating because it's the exception to the rule, right?
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
it shouldn't. There should be that kind of magical circle where you go in and everything's fake and no one's really.
Well, can I just
gonna get
mention
eaten
so
by a
about
shark.
before you go on about Calico Town? That was a real town. It was actually a
Right.
real town
In America.
In America.
Ghost town.
A
Like
ghost-
is it kind of a Western or like a
Yes.
Depression era
No, it was
town?
before then. It was back
Right.
in the days when they used to.
with cowboys?
Yeah, the cowboys and all the different mine. It had a mine there.
Mining,
That's why they built the
right.
town around a mine. But when that became depleted, then the whole town became a ghost town.
And they turned it into, and when you say ghost town,
Attraction.
it's not just that no one's there anymore. It's that it's as you're saying, attraction.
Yes.
So
yes.
what is a ghost town attraction space like? Is it like Disneyland, like a theme park? Like you go in
Well,
and there's theme park areas, or it's
yeah.
kind of real?
It's real. It's real. It was real. All the buildings that were still there were real buildings that were once used by the locals.
So it's kind of a bit between a museum and a theme area.
It's a living museum, I suppose you'd say. And they said there actually were people who lived there because they had to look after the place.
So we were talking a bit more about that. Like it's kind of like Port Arthur here in Tasmania,
Yes.
where people can visit, and there's also a ghost tour, and there's stories of it. So let's put this on camera. So this is the wow. So this is from when did you go to 1980 something?
82, 83.
Wow.
Yeah,
So
82,
this
83.
is the fascinating, authentic map that you got.
Yes.
And were you excited? Did you see ghosts? I mean, they kind of
No,
pictured as a ghost
they
space,
told
or?
us about, there was a couple of buildings there that they actually had closed off and that people didn't go into. And they said that's where they had a ghost of someone. There was a lady in one of them and there was a man in another one. So they actually had seen ghosts there. Because
It
was
reminds
very
me a
old.
bit of Sovereign Hill.
Yes,
right?
yes, it's probably very
These
similar. I
kind
haven't
of-
been to Sovereign Hill, but and I know old Sydney town they have near Sydney in New South Wales. I've been there and it's very similar to that sort of idea. But this was actually a real working, living, breathing town. A bit like Sovereign Hill, which was as well. And similar thing, the mines get depleted and everyone moves away. But with this one here, I have to just say the story. When we got there, Mum and Dad had been there before and they said, right, we get there, we go straight up the top of the hill. We just keep walking to get the top of the hill to the ice cream cafe and ice cream parlour. And we get in there and we order ice cream sundaes.
Ice cream. Okay, that's a good goal.
Honestly. So we got there and we ordered one each, 4 of us. They were so huge. They had like 10 scoops of ice cream in each one, 5 bananas, everything.
Wow.
And I went, one would have done all 4 of us. And everyone else who got there missed out because they'd used all the ice cream.
Oh, really?
in the house. I felt so
Really?
bad.
So I mean,
Yes. I think
because
one-
you hear a lot
I
about the
think one
over
person-
serving that goes on in America.
Yeah.
Like the sizes are
Honestly.
twice or 3 times as much as what you'd expect in Australia. But I've never heard of them, and then they ran out.
Well, the person behind us, I think, got some, but after that, they didn't have any. Everyone's watching us eat these
Huge.
like literally, they were absolutely enormous. And I said, did they used to serve them in the day?
Did
And
you
said,
finish
yeah.
it?
Oh, no way. You couldn't. I had to get other. Well, actually, there were a few other kids on our tour. They helped us have some.
Oh, good.
But they did say, look, that's the sort of serving they used to have back in the day. We're actually using the proper, real Sunday trays that they used to use to
So it's not just
back
a
in-
little,
no, it was a huge
champagne glass or
tray.
something.
There was a huge tray.
a tray.
Yeah, a tray,
Of
a glass
ice cream.
tray, an oval shape that was covered in
So it's
ice
almost
cream.
like you're given a 2-litre bucket of ice cream from the supermarket.
Just about. Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely incredible. And they said, oh no, that's what they used to serve back in the day. But probably the whole family would have eaten them as well.
And it would have been like a nickel or something.
Yeah, it was. It
Yeah.
was. It was about that, yes. Because they had the old prices up on the board to show you. And it cost barely nothing.
Oh, the exchange rate was strong.
No, because they charged us pretty well the rate that it would have been like.
Oh, wow,
like
right.
Berlin, you know, like a bit more maybe,
That's
but
rare.
not much more.
Normally,
It
you'd imagine theme parks are...
So how much is a
No.
nickel
cost barely
for the
nothing.
non-Americans?
A nickel is that 25 cents?
Is that a quarter?
That's a quarter. So what's a nickel? A nickel is 20 cents. Is that right? I can't remember because I haven't been there to America for a long time. But
Do you know, Nicholas?
It costs $1. I think they cost $1. The ones we got. They
Right.
were something like $1 each. Some incredible amount, and it's just like
I think
this is just ridiculous.
I think a dime was like 10 cents, but
Yeah.
don't quote me on
Yeah,
that.
dime's
one.
10 cents. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
So,
But it was fascinating how they actually justified what they were doing by just saying, well, that's what they used to do, and this is what you're coming here for the real experience. And it's true, we were.
I do have a family story from my dad's side of the family, and when he was about 16, he went to Canada and the US, and there was one story where he was standing outside the bank, and this bloke rode up in a horse, and got him to look after it for him while he went into the bank, came out, and then paid him a silver dollar,
A horse.
just for looking after the horse. And this is either 1800s or early 1900s. And the bloke that asked him to do that was Rockefeller.
Oh, right. The famous capitalist oil tycoon.
Yes, that's
right?
what he became. And then
Yes.
his kids and whatever carried on from earning so much money. But getting back to Doctor Who, when we went to the BBC 4 studio, we got to actually stand on the TARDIS. That was the current TARDIS at the time.
And you mean, like, everyone knows the blue box?
Yes,
The police box?
inside the blue box
Right.
where it's bigger.
So they have
It's in, you had the
inside
central,
part?
you had the central part, and you could walk right around it and had all the gadgets that were there. And then when we went downstairs,
And did it look like it does on TV?
yes,
Or did it look
exactly,
smaller? Did
no,
it look more
exactly,
broken? Did it
exactly
look
the same,
faker?
same colours,
Wow.
same size.
But every doctor has their own TARDIS as well. So they changed the TARDIS for each doctor.
Yeah.
And this was the one for Matt Smith that we saw.
Which is, I'm trying to remember, it's like kind of chrome,
2015.
Yeah, it had a lot
colour,
of-
and
had a lot of
Orange.
orange.
Yeah.
and green.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
a lot of that.
And
yes.
then we walked down the other side of the platform, and there was a big curtain there. And we said, you weren't supposed to
What's behind the
look
curtain?
on there.
No.
And had a look.
Take a peek, Nicholas. Yeah.
I did, and there was another TARDIS inside.
No.
Yes.
Spoilers.
Yeah,
so that
spoiler
was
alert.
the new TARDIS for the new Doctor.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
It was going to be Peter.
Matt Smith was leaving at that.
Peter, what's his name?
Peter Capaldi.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's it. And then
Did they beat you? Did they say,
No.
"Hoi, what are you doing? We
No.
must
No.
wipe your
But
memory
they
now"?
said no one's allowed to look behind the curtain.
And did they
because
see
the new
Nicholas do it?
doctor, The new doctor is in the building,
Yeah.
and it was
Yeah.
actually
Oh.
Peter Capaldi. And they didn't. And Nicholas saw him from the back, and he said, "I saw the new doctor."
Wow, and no one.
I didn't
You didn't
say-
get caught
I-
out.
I
They
didn't
didn't
tell
have-
anyone.
They told him to move away.
Oh.
but then we were able to see other bits and pieces from Doctor Who on the studio.
How did you feel? Why did you look behind the curtain? Some people would be afraid
I didn't-
to look
I
behind
didn't
the
look
curtains.
behind the
Like, I don't want to
curtains.
get
I
told
I'm a
off.
scientist. I like experimenting. And
I-
if someone tells me something,
Don't do that.
No, yeah, especially don't do that. But I want to check for myself, is that what it's really like?
So looking behind that curtain was an opportunity to
See the TARDIS?
in all of the TARDIS, like even the parts they don't want you to look
Yes,
at.
yes.
gave
Yeah,
you
well,
this.
it was the actual police box.
Yes, but
you
they were
could see
building a
about
new TARDIS
20 metres away.
Mm.
as well.
Yeah.
So we knew there was a new doctor coming.
But it was only a curtain.
So curiosity didn't kill the cat. Oh, right. So
It was just a
But who
curtain.
else looked behind there? Was it just you?
I did too because.
Oh,
Now
so
it comes out. This is the first time I've heard
no,
this
I
one.
came to get him because I said they're telling you to get away from there. You're not allowed to be there.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
No, the security said,
So you came
get
over.
your husband. He's not allowed to be looking there. The
And-
doctor's there, or something.
And you also then looked though.
Oh no, I only saw so much as I saw. that there was a
Nicholas had it
TARDIS.
open a bit.
But there was some group of people there as well that he saw that I didn't look at. I didn't look at any of them. I just said, "Come now," because
I deny all
Saw the
knowledge.
back of Peter Capaldi. The new doctor was there.
Did other people on the tour ask you what you'd seen? Were you kind of like,
Yes.
No.
because you'd
Yes.
seen the forbidden?
I was
Yes,
silent.
they did ask you. They said, "What did you see? What was it?"
Oh, just a police box.
He said, "Just a police."
Really,
box."
you didn't disclose
No.
the fact that
No.
you'd
Because
seen.
by this time everyone else was sitting down ready for a bit more of a talk.
Wow. And it didn't ruin the trip, right? They didn't ask you to leave. They didn't.
No, they
That's
were very
fascinating.
good.
They were
very
actually
good about
lovely.
it.
They were really lovely about the fact that he was so naughty.
Well, I didn't hear the instructions. You see,
Oh,
because I was like the
Because
last
that's
one.
why I had to go and get him because he didn't.
I was the
know
last
that he
one
wasn't supposed to
down.
look. Yeah.
Yeah, we've got a few stories like that. Some of them don't end as well as this one did.
Wow.
Really?
Wow.
That ended pretty well.
So did you
They all
keep
did.
that secret until after
Yes.
Peter Capaldi became the Doctor? Like, and then it tweaked that
kept-
actually from the back.
We've pretty well kept
Definitely.
it till today.
Yeah, we've kept it secret. Yes. Yeah. Definitely.
Well, I'm sure you'll
in
be
fact,
able to
Nick
go
did-
back.
Spoiler
In
alert.
fact, Nicholas didn't even know he was looking at the new doctor. It was only that the security told me, get him away from there, the new doctor's in there.
Oh.
And I didn't tell him that because I told him later, but at the time he didn't know. But looking back now,
Wow.
he definitely saw him, yes.
Yeah.
Because I hadn't released the information, you see. It was a big,
Right.
big secret.
So as you're saying, at the time, you didn't hear "Not Look Behind the Curtain."
No.
No,
So
the-
Nicholas
the others
looked
were over
behind-
there
Yep,
and heard
you're at
that.
the end.
And I'm sort of coming down the stairs, and it was only about 3 feet away was this curtain, so I just had a bit of a peek behind
Was it mortifying to you to have someone like disobey?
The security came up to me and said, can you get your husband
Really?
back?"
Because the security weren't going to go near Nicholas. They
No,
thought this guy's
no,
dangerous.
yes,
We're
probably.
not going to go near him.
No,
We'll get his wife to do it.
Yeah, they got me to go and get him because they sort of felt probably that I could cajole him better than they could.
But I didn't spend a lot of time looking. It wasn't like I pulled it back
your
fully.
camera out.
And yeah, actually,
No, he
Did
didn't.
you take
no,
a photo?
I didn't.
No,
I
he
didn't.
didn't.
No.
Definitely
I
not.
think we were told we weren't allowed to take
Yes,
photos
yes.
of any
Oh,
of the
at any
stuff.
point.
No
So
photos. No
Right,
photos.
right,
So
right.
we knew not to take them. But it was just one of those moments that if he had have known, he could have been the one who told the world.
Oh yeah. Did you have a show on Edge Radio? You could have announced it here. Come
No.
back to Australia.
No, not then.
We didn't have one then.
Our daughter did though. She
Yeah.
had one then.
Yeah,
she
she-
could have had the scoop.
Her and her two friends used to have Demystify Me,
Back
which
in the beginning.
now,
in the day.
now I think the ABC have got that name, but
Yeah,
they had the name
to start with,
beforehand.
yes. Yes, so basically
Well,
we've
we've got
talked
2
about
minutes
a few
left,
things.
so-
We've talked about a few things today, but there's a lot of reasons why it's really important, I think, to find your own parts of the, I suppose, media that interest you and get involved if you can. Like
Excellent advice.
we love radio and we've gotten
Yeah.
involved in radio.
And
Well, this radio studio itself has appeared on television. The ABC comedy show. What is it?
I can't think either.
Rosehaven.
Yes,
Rosehaven.
yes, of
Season
course.
1, episode
Yes, yes,
5
yes.
yeah,
is filmed in this studio.
I've seen
Fantastic.
photos of that, yes.
Yep,
yes.
yep.
Oh, fantastic, yes.
yeah. And
So-
don't forget that Edge Radio trains people to
Yes.
go on the radio or
Yes.
support people that go on radio.
You can be part of the magic of media.
And also they train people to do podcasting.
Oh, yes,
That's right.
We've done
Yes.
both. We've
So-
done
So
both.
we I conflict of interest. I will say I'm the trainer. for
Yes,
that. So
you're the trainer now. But the very first podcast training, we were with that group, and that's when COVID was on.
Oh, yes.
And our trainer had gone
Online.
to Sydney to
Yeah.
see a family
Clint
member.
did
yeah,
very well.
Plenty, yeah.
and he got stuck there because of COVID, and he did it
Yes.
via video.
He ended up
Well,
being...
some things you
Yes.
don't need to go in the real flesh, but it's been fantastic hearing stories of being in the real flesh to visit media locations.
Yes,
And
thank you.
we've
Another
got some
time-
great
we might
stories
be able to
about
come on another
Ireland.
time.
Yeah, next time.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do history.
Yeah.
We'll get.
Well, we've got a story about Wendy's
change
birthday and Finn McCool.
Yes, we've
and
got to
Ireland.
go. Okay, so all the
We can
best.
talk
Thanks, Craig.
Thanks,
Thank
Craig.
you, Nicholas.
Thanks, Dr. Craig.
And
Thank you,
Wendy
everyone.
for coming on. It's been an absolute
Yes,
pleasure.
Not Doctor Who, Dr. Craig.
Yeah,
Exactly
Thanks,
like
Dr.
that.
Craig.
Yes, thank you.
And you've been wonderful companions
Thank
on
you
this
for
journey.
that.
Keep listening. Taylor's still AWOL for K-Pop Unlimited, so we'll just be playing some really cool Edge tunes. And you've been listening to Media Mothership for another week.